In this tutorial, we will learn how to use elastic audio to conform a loopable audio phrase to the tempo of a sequence. In other words, speed up or slow down the audio. A couple of settings we need to make before we begin. We probably want to be in grid mode, since we'll be putting our loopable files to the grid. We also want to set our tracks not to sample mode, but tick mode, even though they're audio tracks. And finally, we want to enable elastic audio, and that's done in this section here. It says elastic audio plugin selector. Right now it's disabled. If I click on this menu, you see a few different entries. Polyphonic's a good general algorithm for stretching, slowing down, or speeding up audio. Rhythmic is good for things that have strong attack transients. Basically, when Pro Tools slows down the audio, if you're in rhythmic mode, it doesn't just stretch out all the samples, it leaves the attacks the same speed, if you will, and then it stretches out the releases. So it's more realistic, sounds like the original even when it's slowed down. Monophonic is good for single lines, and Varispeed is basically slowing down or speeding up, just like if you slowed down a record or if you sped it up, it sounds like chipmunks. Xform is the best quality, but that you have to apply to the file and let it create a new audio file. All these other plugins happen in real time, so you can make adjustments on the fly. So the best course of action is to use one of these real-time plugins. Once you've laid out your sequence and you're happy with it, go to Xform and let it render the files for the best audio quality. So for this track, I'm going to use pitched material, so I'll say polyphonic for pitches. And this one is going to have rhythm stuff with just drums, so I'm going to say rhythmic. Okay, now elastic audio is enabled. Let's drag one of these loops in. I'll start running measure 2. I'm in grid mode, so it clicks right to the grid. And you notice already in my clips window, there is a version of this Handel finish loop that has a little clip tick time base next to it. That means it's being adjusted. Okay, so let's hear how this sounds with the metronome. As you can hear, it's not quite lined up with the metronome. There's one other setting we have to make, and that's to tell Pro Tools how long we think this clip is in beats, so it can conform the clip to the grid. So a good way to do that is to preview it in the clips window. So I'm holding down the Option key. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so I counted how many beats. It ended on the beginning of the 9th beat, which means it's exactly 8 beats long. So now we need to go and check out the elastic audio properties. So if I go to Clip, Elastic Properties, and you'll see some information that Pro Tools has calculated about this clip. So it tries to guess how many beats long it is. Sometimes it's accurate, sometimes it's not. Right now it says it's basically 7 beats long and a little more, but we want it to be exactly 8 beats long. So I'm going to say 2 bars, which is 2 bars of 4, 4, so that means 8 beats total. Everything else we can leave the same. So now, once I hit the return button, you'll notice that the clip expanded and fits exactly into 2 bars. Let's hear how it sounds now. Now it's lined up with the metronome, and it's going at 120 beats per minute. Easy as that. Let's do the same thing with this drum clip. I'll start by previewing it. 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. So that one is also a full 8 beats all the way to the end of the 8th beat. Okay, let's drag that in next to this clip right here. Again, it knows it's in a tick-based track, so it's being readied to fit to the grid. And as you also notice, it's a little slower than 120 beats per minute because it's hanging over into the 3rd bar. So I do the same thing. I go to Clip, Elastic Properties. Yes, it thinks it's a little more than 8 beats long. So I'm going to just change that here. Once I press return, notice that the clip will conform to the two measures. There it is. And it also has this little symbol which means elastic audio is enabled on that clip. You see it up here as well. Now let's hear this with the click. Okay, very cool. Now I can just paste this in. This has already been cleaned up so that the beginning and the end have a quick fade in, fade out. There shouldn't be any pops or clicks. And since I've conformed both of these to this tempo, they should play right alongside each other and play in tempo. Let's check it out. Okay, and there it is, as silly as that sounds. Now, that was great that we could conform this audio to fit this tempo. It can even follow the tempo changes. So if I change my tempo, since it's tick-based, it will follow the tempo changes. If this was set to samples, it would not follow the tempo changes. How about a little slower? Okay, so I just slowed down the tempo. Notice everything still fits 2 bars, and it sounds like this now. Okay, so you started to hear the sound degrading a little bit. It's very difficult for any program to slow down audio without creating little sonic artifacts. That's because it's pulling apart samples or snapshots of sound and trying to fill in those spaces with what it thinks the sound should be. Let's just try one other thing that might be cool with the tempo. Let's do a tempo change and see if it can follow that. So I'm actually going to draw in a tempo change. Let's go to the conductor. Let's start it at a slower tempo, like we had. And I'm going to have it speed up here, just for the heck of it. Let's see what it does. Do it over 2 bars. Okay, so it should be pretty fast by the end of this. Okay, let's hear how this sounds. So yes, you could even gradually speed up and slow down the audio. Pretty amazing functionality.